Wazazi, mko karibu. Vuta stool karibu na TV na radio. We have an interesting conversation we want to get into today. Today we are looking at, how do you reconcile with your adult children? It's all about family estrangement. I've got two amazing ladies in studio with us today via Zoom who are going to help us gain deeper insights into this. First, let me introduce Angela Nzilani. Angela is a healing and transformational life coach. Angela, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Karibu sana. It's good to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
We also have pastor and psychologist Anastasia Kiwaga. How are you doing today, Anastasia?
I'm doing well.
Karibu sana. It's good to have
Good
you
morning,
again on the show.
I'm doing well.
Great.
Nice to meet you once again, Pastor James.
Awesome. Angela, let me begin with you. When we talk about just reconciling with your adult children, I'm wondering what are some common things that would cause a parent and their child to see things from different perspectives, such that even by the time they're adults, they haven't reconciled. Kwani hizi ni shida gani hizi kubwa hivi? What are some of the common things maybe you have seen?
Some of the things actually don't just happen from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things happen at their adult life, and these are things like values. Maybe when you're growing up, you could see that your parent has different values, and probably you don't advocate for that. So you'd want to have different kinds of values. Other things like political values or political views.
Mm-hmm.
Things like spirituality or change of spirituality, or just narcissism by itself, the way narcissist people behave. Either the parent is a narcissist or the child is a narcissist. So this tends to bring toxicity in the family, and somebody wants to just keep away.
Mm-hmm.
They prefer to be away, probably keeping their children away from the parents, or the parents, the children just want to have their own space. Or things like bad parenting. We could be raised by maybe parents who are alcoholic, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to choose a different kind of life.
Yeah.
So, or somebody who used to really batter their children. So the children, when they grow up, they feel like this distance is, we need to create distance from this, because the emotional distance had already been created.
Mm-hmm.
It's only now the physical distance that they take responsibility for. Or things like divorce, parents divorcing and children don't accept or they are not okay with that.
Yeah.
So they tend to just keep away from the parents. So mostly it's just something to do with anger or difference in reasoning.
Okay. Anastasia, I'm just wondering, are these situations common?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
These situations are very common. As Zilani has said, these things happen
Mm-hmm.
because as children are growing up, they pick quite much from their parents.
Yeah.
And from the environment, from the parent level and from the social environment. There is something that children do. They form an image or a concept about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, they may differ with what their parents have called their value system, as she has said. They may differ. Sometimes they may differ in terms of when they're growing up, there may be separation or
Mm-hmm.
divorce. It may be between the dad and the mom, but it is not agreeable with the children.
Yeah.
And therefore, they form a wall. Also, traumatic experiences. We are living in times whereby we are experiencing trauma once and in a while.
Mm-hmm.
The traumatic experiences that children go through, they may not really process and come to a closure. And when they grow up, they form a perception, and they want to really detach themselves from their parents, or cut off completely from their parents, because they felt misunderstood. And because nobody brought their awareness, they build a wall, and therefore they form estrangement.
Okay. Sometimes in situations like this, you have both parties feel they are right. The position they have taken is the right position. And sometimes, in fact, most times, the parent, leans heavily on the aspect of authority. I'm the parent here, you're the child. So no one is willing to budge, no one is willing to compromise. So I'm wondering, where do you even begin? As a parent, do you wait for the child to come back to you? Because si mimi ndio mzazi, sasa mimi ndio nitanyenyekea na yeye ndio mtoto. Or how do you handle this situation, Angela?
Many times parents keep on pushing, keep on pushing and pushing and pushing. But in most cases, with what I've seen, it's not what works. So I think it's good to express what you would want as a parent, or what you would expect from the child, and give them time, give them the space they need. Eventually, as the children grow up and as they learn, because life is a teacher, they end up even bringing, being the ones to now come and seek this reconciliation. So it's good also for the parent to let the child determine the, the scope of how they're going to approach it, or they set the tone of how they're going to come back together. So many times parents want to be the ones, keep on pushing and pushing, and eventually it becomes even annoying, and even the pushing and trying to communicate, to raise communication with these children, they even end up pushing them away further. So I think it's good for the child, or for the parents, to let the child just understand that this is where we are with my parent, this is what they think, and eventually life will teach them.
What if you have that kind of a child, Anastasia, who attack your story? You've tried, you've waited for them to come, you've given them the space, but it seems like the more space you give them, the farther away they drift, and you really want to reconcile with this child of yours. Where do you begin?
As Angela has said, it is good, when children, the adult children, they estrange from their parents, they feel like it's a space, they have a free space.
Yeah.
After all, they have been under, they have been under a lock and key. That these authoritarian parents, they are these violent homes, or like we have said, there is emotional abuse, there is physical abuse. So after all, when they grow up and they are far away from your parents, they feel a free space, and they feel they have been freed, that liberation that they get. And therefore, for them to come together and reconcile once again, it requires a lot of talking, a lot of psychosocial support, a lot of seeking for family therapy, whereby you bring them into combination. We call it CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, whereby you bring these people into a point of awareness of what happened, because maybe the parent doesn't know why the children they separated themselves from them. And therefore, as you talk to them, you need to create that awareness to be able to break that wall. You see, everybody feels that they have a light, and therefore they build a wall through something we call defense mechanism. When somebody builds a wall, they don't want us to meet. So there is that wall that has been built between the parent and the adult child. And because of that, they use something we call defense mechanism. And therefore, getting through them, it's very difficult. And therefore, both parties, the parent and the child, or the adult child, they need to bring to a reconciliation, whereby, first of all, before you reconcile them, you need to do something we call personal and self-awareness. They need to be aware what happened as you're growing up. And that is what we do in family therapy. As you're growing up, let him understand, or make the child let hear from the child. Be emphatically present, even as a parent. Be emphatically present for the child, to listen to them, listen to their view. Sometimes when the children are growing up, we don't listen to them. It's their word, it's your word as a parent against their word. But now they have gotten this space whereby it is my word, mom, dad, against my word. Therefore, we have two different worlds. And because we have two different worlds of understanding, there is that gap, as Angela has said. And the gap continues widening when there is no dialogue. As you don't talk, as you don't bring to awareness, and one party has to bow. At this time, it has to be the parent, because they are the ones who were not there, maybe when they were growing up.
Okay. I'm wondering, is because some of these issues that tend to split families and bring about estrangement between parent and child, some of them are very heated, very emotive situations. Is it wise to have a mediator, a Kofi Annan kind of person, to be in between the two of you, to help you both see things from the other person's perspective and to help bring you back together? Angela?
I think some cases may require a mediator, but others may be so deep that they would require, a therapist.
Okay.
So it's up to now the parties, or even maybe the mediator, to be able to pinpoint whether it's okay to deal with a psychologist, or they can just agree or disagree to agree to disagree, or just agree to agree. So I think it's good to evaluate the situation, the depth of the situation, because some of these things are deep rooted.
Yeah.
I had a case of a family where the mother has no idea what happened to the children,
Yes.
and mostly the daughters. And she's really sad that every effort she has tried to make, it's not working. And she's actually a reverend and somebody who is a very, a leader.
Wow.
But the children are not ready to speak out on the cause, or maybe they don't even know the cause. So like Anastasia said, a lot of awareness is required, and between both the child and the parent. So each must have their own journey of awareness, of healing, of maybe getting to understand who I am, and who I am is a byproduct of how I grew up. Even the parents, it's not just the child alone. The parent could also maybe have had a journey on their lives that
Yes.
has contributed to the kind of people that they are, because we are a sum total of what was put in us by our caregivers. Everyone, regardless of your age, and we are a sum total of what our caregivers put in us, plus what we have allowed, or what we have come across as we grow up and as we are grown up.
Okay.
So we need to go to the basics and get to understand who am I, and where do I come from, and how did my growing up contribute to the kind of person I am. So any therapist, or anybody who comes in to reconcile these two,
Yeah.
should be aware of those basics.
Okay. I'm just wondering, still on what you've just said, how do you deal then with a situation like that, where as a parent you can't put a finger to what happened? You really, honestly, you don't know. Your children are not ready to talk. You're trying to reconcile with them, but it's like they just don't want to get into that space with you. Kila mtu aishi maisha yake. As a parent, Angela, where do you begin? Because it seems like whatever you try is not working, and it can be such a frustrating place to be in.
That's what calls for now this awareness. Being able to identify that I am a product. Myself, I'm a product of, now as a parent, of something. I'm a product of things that happened to me. So I need, whether I understand or not, I may not understand, but just being able to know that they too could have gone through something that have contributed to the kind of people they are today. If my children don't want to have a relationship with me, I shouldn't really either blame myself too much, or blame them, or accuse them. But I should first of all look at myself and get to know that I have had my own journey. I have become this kind of person because of the journey that I've gone through.
Yes.
So same way with them, it could be something that happened to them in school, or I've had children say that my mother never protected me, and these are grown people. They never protected me, but in the real sense, the mother doesn't even know what happened. And what they mean is that maybe the mother brought in relatives. They were trying to help the relatives, and the relatives misused, or they abused these people when they were young children. And this they haven't even communicated to the parents. So now it becomes something that has really affected these children. So we just need to be patient and be aware that they too are a sum total of something that could have happened, or things that could have happened to them as they were growing up.
Okay. Anastasia, somebody's asking, is it possible really to be reconciled to a narcissistic parent?
That is a very important question. As Angela has said, family is a system, and there is systematic roots.
Yes.
And even a narcissist, unfortunately, even them, they are not aware of who they are. And as they were growing up, maybe they have picked traits from their family unawares. And there is this debate that has been saying that a narcissist can't change. And I'm here to kind of disagree. I can agree a bit, and I can also disagree. Because a human being is a system. You know, you're not you're sum total of something. A family is a system. We call the family system, and Bowen has really talked about a family as a system. Some of the children, as they were growing up, there was children library. That is not a contribution of an individual. It was from a parent. And this one, their traits are picked. Some are genetically picked, socially picked, environment that the child grew up. And I said again, and I repeat again, some of the growing environment, people build walls, and they do use defense mechanism.
Yes.
And as the question has been asked, can you reconcile with a narcissist? First of all, you as a person who is aware that you're dealing with a narcissist, you need to develop something we call awareness. You know how you're dealing with this person. Because if we say that we are going to separate from narcissists, and we separate them and we cut ourselves completely from them, then, and unfortunately, they're not aware. Because narcissists, they grow up in a very, maybe violent homes, emotionally abused, they were physically abused. Some are from very brutal parents who are authoritarian, and they pick those traits and they become part of them. You know, when you pick things from your growing up, you develop a self-image, a self-concept, an image about yourself. And sometimes when people are seeing your weakness, you feel attacked and you build a wall.
Okay.
And therefore, I can say yes or no, you can reconcile with a narcissist. But again, you need somebody to, an intermediary, somebody to bring you together, so that both parties can know, you know, this one needs to know that I'm a narcissist, and this other one needs to know that I'm dealing with a narcissist. Then you build a consensus by you need to draw you need to come in between. You have that awareness. You can build your boundaries, my boundaries, but we need to build a common boundary. I understand who I'm dealing with. However, most people say that it's separation, complete separation, which sometimes I disagree.
Okay. So shortly we'll look at, when both parties are in agreement, we need to reconcile. Is there a process that they go through? What are some of the important things they need to do to ensure that this reconciliation actually happens? Because sometimes you can start this process, and because maybe you don't know what to do, things end up becoming even worse than they were before. So we'll look at that shortly. This morning we are talking about family estrangement. How do you reconcile with your adult children? You find yourself in that position where wewe na wazazi hamuongei, mnaonana tu kwa mtandao every once in a while, but really things are not good between you and your children, between you and your parents. If you could share why, that would be beneficial even in this conversation. 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. Some of the comments coming through. This one says, I was married to a narcissist for 5 years, very abusive in all forms. I had to leave 2 years ago for my sake and our daughter's safety. Now trying co-parenting, and it's just so frustrating because you say this kind of men are very manipulative. So sorry to hear that. And then there's another one here. This one is also on a similar issue. There are children of narcissists or psychopath parents growing up in hell. Once someone becomes an adult, they literally flee from home. Usually such children, when they become adults, have to deal with deeply internalized trauma. depression or anxiety disorders. Also, they have self-confidence issues. The worst thing is that no one realizes that it's the parents that's the problem. Narcissistic and psychopathic abuse is so subtle, so insidious, that by the time anything can be done to rescue the victims, it's too late. The children are damaged and need psychological, spiritual intervention to become normal again. I don't know if you can say anything about that, Angela.
Well, yeah, it's usual that parents, mostly it's about what goes on in the family, what has maybe happened in the family, what has been going on throughout this season or the season when they were growing up. So it's mostly about what they have growing up seeing, what they have growing up hearing, what they have growing up maybe experiencing.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's about the parent being the cause of what has happened, even when they didn't know. But what children don't understand is that every parent does the best they can, whether they did it unknowingly or maybe they were abusive or they did what they could, given the information they had as parents, or given the knowledge they have. So when people know better, they do better. So it's good for us to understand that our parents did the best they could, given their situation or given what they knew, what they know. So even them, they've had their own journey. They know, if they knew better, they could bring us better. They could bring up their children in a better way. So
I find that there are those who know better, but they're just selfish.
Yes. Those are usual cases. Yeah, there are those who know better, but prefer just to have their way. Those are narcissists, or maybe people who just believe that, I don't know, you should fight your own journey. I don't care as a parent. I've fought my own journey.
Yes.
So it's also, again, a product of something. They're also a product of something. That is why they behave the way they do.
Okay. But before we talk about the process, Anastasia, maybe you can say something about this. This one comes from a young man. He says, imagine a scenario where you've been brought up by a single mother all by herself. Then after reaching adulthood, you come to know of a father and even meet him. Though I'm still angry at him, how do I handle this? Because the actions of our parents will for surely haunt us in future. So this father was absent. In fact, he did not even have an idea he was there. Now he's an adult, he discovers, Allah, kumbe mzae alikuwa na amenilenga hizi miaka zote. How do you deal with that?
That is a very good question, Pastor James. When there is neglect, it also causes estrangement, because a child feels that they don't have a sense of security.
Yes.
Number one, especially with an absent father, they don't have a sense of identity, because the father gives everybody an identity, and when they are absent, they feel a neglect. And therefore, for them to come together, and I want to be honest with us that sometimes when there is estrangement, we don't have to agree. We may disagree, but disagree amicably. Sometimes it can't work, like with the narcissist, because of the manipulation, a lot of fighting, a lot of toxic relationship whereby there is a lot of fight, there is a lot of violence. And I honestly want to say, sometimes we don't have to agree. We may disagree, but respectively.
Okay.
And see, it can't work. When it can't work, and being a pastor, sometimes we force things to work. And I want to say, from a psychological perspective, sometimes it can't work and it can't work. Therefore, it's okay to disagree respectively. You don't have to fight. You don't have to shout. You don't have to throw words. You don't have to cause drama. You may just disagree with respect. Also, it's good. You as a young man who has been born and brought up in a family whereby your father was absent, develop a sense of meaning and purpose of life, whereby it is, even as you have grown up from a family, you're also a single entity and you're unique. Therefore, develop a sense of meaning and purpose for your life. Unfortunately, we are living in times whereby we are we are coming from a source, and sometimes we form something we call transgenerational. What we picked from our family of growth, we are passing it over to others. And some of the things that we are seeing, Pastor James, it is things that we picked up from our families.
Yeah.
It's called generational cycles. And when we are doing a family tree, we call the genogram, you will see those traits in the family.
Okay.
However, there was nobody who did a cut. You know, you cut those ties and you disconnect them. Some are doing it. We need spiritual intervention. We need psychological intervention, whereby we need to create total and awareness. We need to create awareness and say, this is what is happening. Because you, when you're born and brought up from a narcissist family, unfortunately, you have picked traits of a narcissist. Therefore, we are breeding narcissists. It has not finished. It's not ending there.
Yeah.
So we need to seek psychological support, whereby we need to bring this person to a closure, awareness. Also, for this person who is very bitter and angry, you also need to come to awareness that you need to forgive and let go and understand that it's not about you. It is not about them. Even then, they were not aware.
Okay.
Because we are in a sick society.
Before we
without awareness.
Before we talk about the process, Angela, maybe you can say something about this. This one says, my son and I do not talk after he abandoned his family and moved in with another woman. He does nothing for his children except paying fees. And his legal wife, the mother of his 2 children, does not have a job. When I tell him to take care of his children, he's so disrespectful. Now even the woman he lives with has taken to attacking me. How do I deal with this? My Christian faith cannot allow me to give this other woman space. What does this parent do, Angela?
Oh, yeah, that's those are some of the things we deal with. And yes, it's good, first of all, for the parent to understand that this guy, the child, the son, has his own choices. You know, he has made his own choices. So whether he's taking care of the family or not, some of these things can be handled legally, and if not, because some people choose not to go the legal way.
Yeah.
If not, it's good to also understand that nothing happens for nothing. Everything happens for a reason. So it's good to for this man to work with the son's family, young family that has been left, to just maybe grow together and get to understand that somehow there will be some good from what is going on. Like the young man who just said that he discovered that his father is there, has been alive and is there, and he hasn't taken care of him. He needs to understand that everything that happens in this world happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And somehow he needs to figure out what reason is that.
Okay.
What can I pick? What lessons can I pick? So sometimes we feel that when we are growing up with parents who ran away, or we are growing up alone and we are going through issues because caused by our parents, that we should end up becoming people who are not reliable in the society. But in most cases, it turns out differently, because it's about now everyone making their own choices. As these children grow up, they will also make up their own choices. Yes, it is a very hard and painful thing, but it's good also for the father to seek maybe reconciliation with the son, or mediation, and get someone to talk to the son and get maybe to put some sense in them. And if he doesn't want to, because he still have to to choose. If he doesn't want to live with them, they need to also accept that this is his choice.
Yeah.
So what can we do to move on from here?
Okay. Let's talk about the process before we run out of time. Or maybe you have something you want to add to that?
I wanted to say, to add on the same, it's always good to also do something we call personal reflection.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what could be the outcome? Because as Angela said when we were starting, some people disagree on religious values. Some people disagree on values. And everybody needs to know that you need to respect other people's value.
Okay.
Because we are living in a global village whereby people have developed their own values. And therefore, as a parent, these parents, even as they disagree, it's also good for this parent to respect the son's value system and also appreciate that he can pay school fees because some don't pay. And then from there, first of all, appreciate him for the small wins that he's doing, and then you can seek psychological support.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think sometimes as a parent you feel so let down because this is not the way I raised you. You know, you've invested all your life into this child from the time they were born. You've taught them the right thing, you know, and now they become an adult and they could go in completely the opposite direction. I think as a parent, that can be very, very frustrating. But I love what both of you have shared. Now, let's talk about a process here where both parties are willing. Where do we begin and what kind of process should we go through so that this reconciliation happens? Angela, where do we begin? Both parties are willing.
Both parties are willing. It's good to, first of all, initiate change. If you continue doing things the same way you have been doing them, then you are just expecting the same results. So it's good to evaluate, how have we been handling this? How have I personally been handling this situation? So how can I change, or what change can I apply to bring in a different result? So it's good to initiate change, know that change is inevitable. It could be the only way to do this or to bring in the reconciliation that is required. And also it's good to practice humility. You know, just be humble because you have to put the relationship first, not yourself first. So at this position where there's a lot of maybe disagreements or misunderstandings, miscommunications, you need to first of all put yourself aside and your needs, your desires aside, but look at the relationship. What is the bigger goal? What is my goal and what do I want to achieve? When Jesus Christ was put on the cross, he had the power to say no, and he had the power to stop it, but he knew it was for a bigger cause. So what are you willing to let go of? You need to be willing to, you know, to approach the situation in a different way. And also it's good to find a common ground. It's good to know that this person has their own choices. I have my own choices. I need to accept that this is their choice because this is their life, not my life. And then be able to put yourself on a common ground.
Okay. Anastasia, is it possible to reconcile without agreeing on everything? Because sometimes we want to be able to agree on everything, and if we don't agree on everything, you feel like the other person is your enemy. So is it possible to still come together and reconcile and have a good relationship even though you don't agree on everything, especially the issues that tore you apart?
That's a very good question. Once again, I want to say it is possible for people to come to an agreement without really agreeing on everything. One, when you're coming to a reconciliation, it is good to understand that everybody has their choices. Everybody has their principles. They have their own things. They have their own standpoint. Also, it's also good. Like now, if I'm a parent and my child, I'm going to this religion, and my adult child has gone to another religion, I don't have to force them to come to where I'm worshiping. Like I'm a pastor, and I've seen that one with a lot of pastors, kids, they really deviate. And it's okay to let them be, because it's also so good to understand that there are transition points. As children are growing up, they don't remain a child. They transition from a child to a teenager and now to an adulthood, whereby they have formed their own way of life. Therefore, it's good to respect them. Number one, respect the other party's boundaries. Everybody has a boundaries. As Angela has said, it's also good not to agree with everything, but develop a common ground. This is our standing ground. We don't have, like, dealing with a difficult person. What can you do to reconcile with a difficult person? It is to create contact with them. However, like a narcissist parent, you want to cooperate with them, and they are not avoidable and available. Therefore, there are those boundaries, but tell them, we can meet on this ground. You can maybe pick the kids, go have time with them, This is what you're supposed, these are your responsibility. You agree even from a legal perspective, but you don't have to let them intrude into your privacy, manipulate you, or even fight you. Also, for the cases like in marriage, where there is separation and divorce, what do you do when somebody has divorced and you're a Christian, and maybe the Christian perspective, your standpoint? I want to let you know that it's not about you, it's about them. You don't have to divorce your values, but you can agree on the others just to retain peace. Again, something that will come up, it is forgiving.
Yeah.
Forgiving is very important.
Yeah.
But again, as we talk about forgiving, when you forgive somebody, you don't have to allow them back to your life, to manipulate you, to fight you, to violate your rights. You can forgive them and forget about them. So it's about my freedom. When I forgive, it's about my freedom. I don't have to, we don't have to be in contact together.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't want to allow toxicity in my life. So I forgive for the sake of freedom. I also forgive for the sake of peace, because I need to move on. You know, when you are stuck, you need to really move on from where you are.
Okay.
Therefore, you need to develop that standpoint.
Okay.
And also develop something we call coping mechanism. There are people who cannot cut off completely because they are your brand, they are your children. You cannot cut them off completely. So develop something we call coping mechanism.
Okay. As we wrap up, Angela, what would you tell that parent who's listening in today and they're not in very good relationship with their children? They're not even talking. They're adult children, and both parties are too proud to make the first move. What can you tell them, Wazazi?
Many times, these children who, keep away from their parents, deep down their hearts, they're seeking acceptance. They're seeking, that love, parental love. There's something that they are seeking.
Yeah.
It's not, they're running away because what is being offered is not what they want. So they need maybe to be affirmed. The parent needs to, affirm them. Know that it is your responsibility as the parent to define, love, and show them that I love you no matter what, regardless of how you are, and regardless of whatever choices you have made, I still love you. So they need to be the first pioneers, or the first people to practice love, so that now these children can now start filling in this gap. And it's also good to take time. You can't expect something that has taken a lifetime to make a person to be able to be dealt with within a short time. So it's good to be patient, take time, and time has no measure. So it's good to just take time and be hopeful. Don't lose hope, because there's always a way out.
Very
so
true.
It's good for the parents to just be in control. Let them let go control of themselves, their emotions, but not in control of the whole situation.
Okay.
So they need to let go of control and the situation. The position of being right, or saying that I'm the parent, so I am right. I know better. What I know, you don't know. So it's good also to know that they also have their own life, their own thinking, and their own choices.
Okay, thank you very much. Anastasia, what about the children? These adult children, what would you tell them? Amekuwa mtu mzima, hata pengine sasa yeye yuko na familia yake, but they are not seeing things eye to eye with their parents. They've not reconciled. What would you tell them? Anastasia, we seem to have lost you, eh? We can see you, but we can't hear you. Anyway, our time is up for this discussion. Or maybe, Angela, you want to say something to the children as well?
Yes, it's also good for the children to be respectful. Know that, it's even biblical. Obey your parents, and it doesn't happen when we are young. It also happens when we are growing up, or when you are grown up. There's that reward that we get from God by just obeying our parents.
Yeah.
And this is the only promise that God has given us. So it's good to know that it is my responsibility to be obedient to my parents, to be respectful.
Respectful, yeah.
Whether we agree or not
Yes.
on some terms or on some things, it's good to be respectful.
Awesome.
And give them the place that they need to have. It's also good to be at a very good emotional ground. Sometimes, yes, we think that they don't know much as we do because of things have changed and we have grown up with the change, and we think that our parents don't understand what we are going through. But some of these things, the basics are the same.
Okay.
They never change. What used to happen 2,000 years ago in the parent dynamics is the same things that are happening in the family dynamics even now. So it's good for us, the children, to really be respectful to our parents.
Great. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time is up. Angela and Anastasia, we are glad that you are able to spend some time with us this morning. Wazazi, na pia watoto. Sometimes we wait until it's too late when we are getting to the end of our lives, and we look back and we realize, I wasted so much time. I wish I could have reconciled with my dad. I wish I could have reconciled with my mom. I wish I could have reconciled with my children. The opportunity is there now. Pray that we will put our pride down and reach out. Mzazi, you are the older one. Reach out to those children. They may be wayward. They may have taken a path that you would not want them to take, but you know what? They're still your children. Don't we all take paths we should not take, and God still loves us, and God still embraces us, and God still, wants the very best for us? As a parent, don't lose that. Don't lose that. Sometimes it is the love, unconditional, that will win them back into the fold. Well, God willing, we'll hook up again next week on Tuesday for Parenting Tuesday. Have yourselves a lovely day.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.